Hey, what's up guys? In this video I'm going to show you how to use Wavetable using only Ableton Push 2. I had a couple questions about how easy it would be to, map modulations and use the matrix and things like that. Really get into the editing using only Push. And I was actually pleasantly surprised. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go add device. And I'm going to go down to instruments using the arrows here. Go over. And go all the way down to Wavetable. Neat. I'll just hit the default one and I'll hit load. Super easy, super fun, and yeah, this is Wavetable on Ableton Push. Right now it's a sine wave. Bring it up to that. And I have the frequency down here for the filter. I'll make sure you can see it and you can hear it. You got your resonance. Bring the octave down. Right, super fun, super responsive. So how it works is Ableton Push will give you kind of what it is at a glance. And how you really get into it, it shows you just like basic things on the top here. How you get into it is you just hit this top button here for the wavetable. And then now you have access to your different pages. So you have your main page, which is what we just saw. You got oscillators, right? So you can select your oscillators, filters, global, envelopes, Lfos, matrix, and MIDI for some neat little expressive things that you can do. So let's go to main. Main is just, you got your oscillator. You can select with this knob up here, oscillator 1, oscillator 2, your sub oscillator, and your mix between the two. And that is exceptionally awesome. And yeah, you can just go along your shapes here and move about and do some cool stuff. Oh, let's open up the filter here. Right, so you can get all that stuff. And then you have your wavetable goodness. To dive in to this section here, because we're still in the main section, we'll go to oscillator. And then we have all of our categories. You got your collection, your amber, charcoal, different, I guess, organic sounds. And your pitch, and then your effect, right? You can dive in, you got your FM. Right, and it shows you right in there, which is super cool. All right, I'm going to get into the matrix stuff in a moment. But yeah, then you have your selection, oscillator 1, 2, sub, and mix. Super fun. Now you have your filters, and this is your diving in to the... Right, you have your main page here, which is your filter. You can dive in, so you have your filter circuit, MS2 with drive. You got your serial, your parallel. You can select your different filters, on, off, right? So we'll just stick with one filter for now with the MS2 filter circuit algorithm. And yeah, there's that. That is the filter. Global is, your monophonic on, so you can have, it's like a monophonic analog synth, like the Moogs and whatever. You can adjust your glide. Might be a little too long. Right, you got all your different things like that, but I'll turn that off for now. You have your poly voices, which is the maximum amount of notes you can play at one time. So if you want to have it like a 2-voice synth, you want to play 3, it doesn't do it, but you can have, 8 voices, which is pretty cool. Unison Mode. Unison Mode is where the money's at. This is probably one of the better sounding unisons I've heard in a synth in quite some time. So you have your unison voices. Let's go 7 for that classic sound. Then your unison amount, what you're doing is when you press a note, you're stacking a bunch and then detuning them. Sorry, my nails are... No, they're not that dirty. Okay. You have your unison amount. And you can do like... Right, so it's a combination between how many poly voices you can have, so how many keys you can press, as opposed to a monophonic, which is one at a time. Then you have Unison Mode, which is a basic stacking and then detuning the pitch there. There's different Unison modes, and they all sound neato, in my opinion. Yeah, Unison is, the new thing. People have really kind of, making an effort for excellent sounding unison, especially on the low end. The low end unison is very important. You'll notice that, on poor quality synth, the unison on lower notes, the bottom end just sounds kind of weird. But that's when you know that it kind of breaks apart. Unison is actually kind of tricky to nail down. Anyway, that's global, and that is your voicing and your transpose, which is your global transpose. So you can move that up and down, etc., etc. Envelopes. Now you got your different kinds of envelopes. Your amplifier, which is directly tied to your amplitude, so we can adjust the attack. Have a snappier release. Sorry, the screen shaking wasn't making anyone dizzy. Then we have our envelope 2 and 3, which we'll get into in a moment. LFOs, you have your 2 LFOs, and we'll get into those in a moment. And the matrix, we'll get into that in a moment. And your MIDI, we'll get into that in a moment. So let's pretend that we want to modulate something. So how that works is, it actually makes a lot of sense. So you want to modulate that. What you do, I'll use my other hand here. Super, super duper easy. So whatever no, not that one. Whatever you're wiggling, you press and hold it. And you'll notice in the top right here, this button becomes available. And the Add to Matrix is highlighted. So we press that. Boom. The filter 1 is added to the matrix. So we can add that to LFO 1. Right? Varying levels of intensity. So the filter 1 cutoff is mapped to the LFO 1. Right? Elementary, my dear Watson. So we can adjust the rate here. Right, so we have that. Something cool we can do is we can also touch and tap that for the rate, and then go add that to matrix, and then have LFO 2, changing that over time. Super cool, right? So we have that. So we can do all sorts of stuff. We can have things subtle, and we can mod matrix almost everything. It's pretty neat. So let's go back to that filter. Oh, actually, let's go back to the LFO 1. I want the rate to be affected. So I'll do that again. I want the rate to be affected by, let's say, MIDI. So I selected MIDI here, and I want the velocity to affect the LFO rate. So the harder I press this button, the faster the LFO will modulate. Right? Kind of cool to get, a performance on there. And this is exaggerated just for the sake of exaggerating. Let's see what else we have here. We can have, let's say, the pitch or the FM amount on this particular wavetable. Press that. Press this button with my thumb here. I'm just touching it with my finger. Add to matrix, envelope 2. Let's do it. So we'll go to envelope 2. Go to the matrix, FM amount. Let's go max that out. Right, so we got really cool performance kind of randomization, but not quite randomization. You know, we can make it less random by, let's say, synchronizing. So right now it's in hertz. Let's go sync. So it will, the LFO 1 and LFO 2 will now sync. Let's just see what that sounds like. Let's have them at different, you know, rates. Right? Super cool, right? I think it's super cool. You know, we can also do cool things with the shape as well. Different LFO types, and they all kind of, adjusting the shape will change them, you know, ramp, things like that. Shape is very useful. So you have like, you know, different LFO shapes here, pulse width LFO shapes, super neat. Sample and hold, randomized ones, things like that. There's that. What else am I missing? Yeah, you just kind of, you know, you can go through things you've already modulated in the main matrix page, and likewise in the MIDI. So yeah, how is that for being fun? And yeah, just the display is actually really responsive, surprisingly responsive, especially when you drop an EQ8 on there. Just like the display looks great. Anyway, that is that. You can click out of your wavetable, and then you have things back there at a glance, and you can all right. And there you have it. So I guess we'll go back to main, hit that. Yeah, so you can have like a default kind of page if you want to have that open. Yeah, I want to play around with this filter. Things like that. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Take care and have a good one.